We've had a real wobble in the last few rounds here at Mercedes, off the podium in all of the last 3 since winning in Bahrain. But the next race is a sprint race weekend in COTA, and we need to capitalise to get back on form. Hello folks, welcome to episode 82 of this journey with Mercedes. We're gearing up for the United States Grand Prix around the fan favourite COTA, Circuit of the Americas in Texas. And, well, we've not been on a very good run of form, have we? We kind of dropped the ball in Canada. We really should have been on the podium, but we weren't because, well, guilty party is here. I stayed out under safety car, should have boxed, and then the rain came and we were way out of position. We did recover George to P5 by the end. Yes, P5. But Oscar Piastri was involved in a collision with Zane Maloney, which has meant that Oscar has an old chassis because we don't have any of the latest spec left. We might need to manufacture another one of those because George might need one at some point anyway. So we'll probably deal with that after today's race. But in the championship picture, it is probably Red Bulls to lose now. Well, it's definitely Red Bulls to lose now. They're 100 points clear of us in the Constructors' Championship. But in the Drivers' Championship, we still hold the advantage with George Russell. 34 points clear of Max Verstappen and still very much all to play for. But those upgrades that we put in place for hopefully what would be the Mexico Grand Prix, they're going to be delayed because we've encountered a serious problem in designing the new front wing. We need to design all of the current projects, which includes the rear wing as well. The wind tunnel is showing incorrect data and they're not sure why in the engineering department. They think it's a calibration error caused by an engineer rushing work, but a full investigation is necessary. We did ask them to rush their work, so I suppose, you take a risk, you might get bitten a little bit. So I had to sign off on the pause. There was nothing else I could do. It was literally the only option. It was approve the pause or you can't go anywhere. So we'll mark everything as read. And without further ado, we'll dive straight into the one and only practice session, prepare ourselves for qualifying, and then let's do a sprint weekend in Texas. We need to improve on the last few races. I'll see you in qualifying. A successful qualifying session so far. We've got both drivers into Q3, something we haven't achieved on every occasion in qualifying this season. Max Verstappen topping the times ahead of Pierre Gasly, but they did 2 runs. We followed Red Bull out behind Charles Leclerc and got a nice tow for the middle sector, which gave George at the time the fastest time. And it was the one run that he did. Piastri also got through on a single run, so we're going to replicate exactly that. Get a slipstream from somebody, probably Red Bull, and see where they can help us get to, because we're looking semi-competitive. Whisper it, we might be back on form. Let's get into Q3. First flying laps incoming then. We've got George a nice position just behind Max Verstappen. Hopefully he doesn't get too much turbulent air from the Red Bull through this first sector. I'm not expecting it to be faster than the Dutchman, although it might be because Verstappen's on old tyres, although he's still set the best first sector of anybody thus far in qualifying 3. But this is where our position might pay dividends. We've got a nice slipstream behind us. Is that Williams might have just got in Piastri's way. Verstappen flying in the middle sector. He's absolutely acing this lap. He's leaving us behind. And this is not good for our championship hopes with George Russell. Into the final couple of corners then. Leclerc sets the benchmark. How far behind are we? Wow, 3/4 of a second slower that time around than Max Verstappen, who just smashed it. And Piastri, 2.5 seconds off. He must have got balked by the traffic on the back straight. That was far from ideal. Third and final laps incoming then. Second and final lap, sorry, not third and final lap. Third and final part of qualifying. And we're in 5th place with George Russell. Lando Norris has just gone top of the times. That's impressive from him. We were behind Verstappen, but I think we've lost any kind of opportunity to slipstream him, and George not improving in the first sector. I think there was a bit of traffic at some point for him too. Lando on pole wouldn't be a disaster, but I have a suspicion that Verstappen is not. Well, he's not improving. That's interesting. Leclerc does 2 personal bests and the fastest final sector and only goes third, showing how good Verstappen's first lap was. Improvement in the middle sector from George. Oscar is having a much better lap. Let's see how this all pans out. Verstappen stays second, Russell stays 5th, Piastri goes to 7th, and then Ocon bumps us down to 6th and 8th. Oh dear, this hasn't been a particularly fruitful qualifying session. However, remember in the sprint we set our start slot for the grid by our finishing position. So this is definitely rectifiable if we get our strategy right. But Lando Norris pulling out the lap when it mattered. 5 thousandths of a second in it between him and Verstappen. And then Leclerc is just a smidge behind as well. That was super close. And we were nowhere near it, which is not good. All set for the sprint then. It's medium tyres all the way to the end. Now, I did play practice 2. So I just timed 16s my way through it. But we used just soft tyres, actually. I sent them out on used soft tyres. So I wanted to keep as many mediums for the sprint and the race as possible. And essentially, my plan for the race is to go medium, medium, hard, because tyre wear around COTA is brutal. As we saw at the end of last season's race in COTA, Lewis Hamilton stole the win from Sergio Perez on the last lap because Perez basically ran out of tyres. I think he had like 8% tyre wear or something ridiculous towards the end because he was on softs. So we're just going to run mediums in the race. I am prepared to make a pit stop if there is a safety car in this race, and we will go to our one and only set of soft tyres. We could even commit to a stop just ordinarily because the tyres are a bit ropey around here. So we'll see how it goes. If we feel like there's advantage to be had from stopping, we'll do it. But at the moment, probably not the wisest decision going in, assuming you're going to stop. You're probably going to lose too much time and lose too many positions. But as I said, if there's a safety car or VSC, we're coming in. Although hopefully it's not on like lap 1. That would just be silly. But anyway, let's do a sprint and set ourselves up for a decent start for the Grand Prix. Lando Norris then on pole on a sprint weekend again, as he was in Jeddah. 5 red lights. The lights are out. The race is on. Max Verstappen got away very well there. And George Russell in P6 looking to make some progress early on. Lance Stroll is the car ahead of him. Not anymore, in fact. It's Esteban Ocon. Norris and Verstappen are at it at the front. And it is the Ferrari man who's come out on top. Russell staying in P6. Alrighty then, lap 2. We're going to start driving in clean air with both drivers. We're going to standardise our tyre usage because we don't want our tyres to die. What's everybody else doing? Everyone else is on mediums in the top 8. Behrman, Pusher and Sargent and Lawson have gone hards. That's interesting. The hards will probably be a really good sprint tyre because they won't overheat as much. But at the moment, Ocon is holding us up and we need to get by. So we might have to go aggressive with the tyres, at least with George, and see if we can get through. But I have underfueled, so we don't want to push too hard because we don't want to run out of fuel again. And I'm trying to save wear on the engine. I feel like we've been pushing too hard on the engines this season and it's costing us. Verstappen is 1.7 behind Leclerc and Norris, who are fighting for the lead. There goes Charles Leclerc into the lead of this sprint. George has dropped back behind Ocon, so we're going to start deploying again with both cars and close that gap. We've actually lost a position. Pierre Gasly's just come past. This is really not ideal. I don't know what's going on. We are just Aston Martining this season. We were so good at the start of the season, and now we are just rubbish. Absolutely rubbish. Oscar, I'm going to need you to attack on your go aggressive on your tyres. But we're going backwards, and I don't know what to do. I genuinely don't know how to solve this. We might be about to get some good news because George Russell is overtaking Esteban Ocon, and he has done so. That's a decent step in the right direction, but our tyres are taking a bit of a pounding. Everybody else is starting to back off on theirs. But we're not making much progress here at Mercedes. Gasly has just romped through from, I think, P9 on the grid, or P7 on the grid, in fact. And now he's fourth. George has just gradually got himself into DRS range of Lance Stroll. Oscar Piastri is now behind Carlos Sainz's McLaren. Honestly, with Oscar, we can't do anything with him. We've got to prioritise George and make sure we execute his races as best we can for his championship position. That 34-point lead was at one point over 100. So we definitely need to pick up the pace in terms of our points scoring, but also on track. We're closing the gap though on Stroll, which is good news. With Oscar, he is 7 seconds clear of Théo Pourchaire, so he's not under immediate threat at the moment, and he's got DRS off the back of Sainz. We might have an opportunity here with George. If we get him to drive in clean air, I think we're going to go into P5. Giddy heights here at Mercedes. And George making that move stick, I think. Or not. He's going to just send it back up the inside. There we go. Get in, George. And now let's get off up the road after the Ferrari. What's everyone doing on their tyres? Pretty much the same as us. Not a race where you've been able to push the tyres too hard. And Stroll is coming back at us, which I don't really appreciate. I think what we'll do is just set Gasly up for the final lap as Leclerc moves into P2. Could he actually snatch a win from his teammate? George looking around the outside of Gasly, sneaking up the inside and challenging for P4, but ultimately unsuccessful, at least for now. P4 is the best we're going to get in this sprint, and we need to do it basically on the last lap, I would think. So I might just get George to top up the battery a little bit, and then we'll send it on the final lap of the sprint. We've recovered enough fuel so we can go back to balanced, and we can set it up for a final lap send. We might not need the final lap send because George is on the brink of taking fourth place from Pierre Gasly. He has done just that. I'd actually like him to be behind because I want to send it into the final lap, which is being started by Charles Leclerc. He now leads his teammate, and George is coming out of the final corner with DRS and is going to send it past Pierre Gasly. So this is really good. Verstappen's only going to take 2 points out of George's championship lead. Let's go for it with Oscar as well. Deploy on the final lap. In fact, we'll harvest for George the next section. Piastri has got it. He's got past Carlos Sainz. It's all happening for Mercedes on this last lap. What's the tyre situation like? We've done a good job on ours. We'll deploy our battery as Gasly has actually dropped back and doesn't get DRS. That's interesting. Gasly has just kind of given up, and Piastri's going to get himself a point too. So that is mightily good news. This game really does need team orders. It's helping us out right now because Charles Leclerc is going to win the sprint. But really, would Charles Leclerc be allowed to win the sprint in this situation? Absolutely not. George Russell finishes P4. He'll start fourth in the Grand Prix. Oscar finishes where he started. But I'm pleased with that because it gives us an opportunity to do something in the race. I think the AI will use softs at some point and will be in a really, really good position. So let's head on to Sunday and get a good strategy set up and prepared. We're ready to rock and roll then with our strategy for the United States Grand Prix. As I mentioned earlier, it's a medium hard strategy for George Russell, although I'm just going to switch those compounds around. So we go medium hard, medium, and move George's final stop to lap 38. That'll do. But with Oscar, we're going to go a bit crazy and we're going to be aggressive the whole way through the race, and we're going to 3 stops. So he's going to be pushing the entire time. Might work out with a safety car or something. Both drivers have a set of softs available. In that case, we could stick them on whenever maybe, but they really won't last long. So it could be something to just fall back on if there's a late safety car maybe. We'll have to play that by ear. But let's get racy and do a motor race. Here we go then. All Red Bull front row after they topped the sprint. 5 red lights. The lights are out. The race is on. George Russell looked like he got a good getaway there. Can he get up the inside of his old mate, Lando Norris? He can indeed. And that is Max Verstappen's gearbox right in front of us. George making the move stick, I think, on Lando. No, the Ferrari got better traction out of turn 1. But we're there and we're in the fight with everybody else. Oscar has moved up a position ahead of Oscar Piastri, which is good news for him and good news for Mercedes, although our Constructors' Championship hopes are probably just about done and dusted, I'd suppose. That's Lando Norris actually challenging Max Verstappen for second position in this race, but not quite pulling the move off. Verstappen already almost a second behind his teammate because he's being bothered by Lando. And keep it up, Lando. That's the message from me, because it keeps us in the hunt. Well, once again, we have lost a position to Pierre Gasly. So this race has started exactly in the same fashion as the sprint. We didn't deploy on lap 2, and I think that was our undoing. It allowed Norris and Verstappen to escape. It allowed Gasly to attack, close the gap on Gasly to get some DRS. Did we get DRS? I don't think we did. Oh, we did. Lovely. Oh, virtual safety car. That's useful. Who's crashed? It's Nick de Vries. Piastri fending off Lance Stroll there in the background. He doesn't have DRS. And of course, there's no delay in DRS being activated as George Russell sends it around the outside. That's a fantastic move and a really important one as well for George. He's got past Gasly. A vital overtake for the Mercedes driver, the 2025 world champion in this universe. Or 2024, because we're in 2026. Lewis Hamilton was the 2025 champion, and Verstappen's lost a position to Norris. So maybe we can catch the Red Bull here. I think we've got DRS here. We have. We are just about onto the tail of Max Verstappen, and maybe we might be able to beat him. Leclerc has just cleared off, so that's interesting from his standpoint. We're better on our tyres right now than the Red Bulls. I'm guessing they're going to box earlier than us. Piastri's going to box earlier than everybody, and he has got past Lance Stroll and is chasing down, that is Ocon's McLaren. We've reached George's optimal pit stop lap, and there are some people behind us who are starting to head to the pit lane. We've got a... Oh, George! Oh, no! Oh, he's blown it. We've got another yellow flag. What's going on? Oh, oops, indeed. Pocher running wide, and that's George. Oh, that was such a... We were in such a good position, and now we are several seconds behind Verstappen. Gasly's got back through. All right, lap 19, and George Russell is now closing the gap to Esteban Ocon on his fresh, hard tyres, but his teammate, Oscar Piastri, is currently faster than him. Obviously on mediums and also pushing. So what I might get George to do is allow Oscar through and then just follow him, because as long as Piastri's going quickly, that's a positive for us. Let's see what the lap times here are like. Yeah. So what I'll get George to do is not just to let him through, but I'll get him to rarely defend, and then I'll get Oscar to drive in clean air. Once the move is done, George will then be asked to not fight his teammate. Hopefully, Piastri will be able to just bring the pair of them along. So Piastri's strategy might really help George in terms of giving him DRS and that extra pace. And the Mercedes are about to enter battle, but controlled battle. And hopefully it'll work in our favour. If we play it right, it will. If we don't, it's just going to slow us down. Here we go then. Surely Oscar is going to go through. He is. And don't fight teammate, George. And just follow Oscar along. And Oscar is a few laps out from a pit stop, so he won't be behind for too long. But we've got cars in the pit lane. A whole bunch of them. Ferrari have double stacked. And they are soft tyres on Leclerc, were they not? and Norris. Are they on Gasly as well? Yes, they are. And what's Ocon put on? Mediums. Where is Russell in all of this? He's... Oh, that was Oscar and Lando, or was it? No, it was Gasly, sorry. It's not quite worked out, but we're certainly much closer. As Verstappen goes to the pit lane, maybe we'll be able to undercut him. What's he put on? A set of mediums. Very interesting. Split strategies at Red Bull. Are we going to pinch the place off of Verstappen? Not quite. Not quite. But I will get Oscar to move out of the way if he doesn't have DRS this lap. Oscar does have DRS this lap, and he can put Verstappen under some pressure. So let's get him driving in clean air. And also, let's turn his overtake aggression up. Because we want to get past Verstappen and make his life as difficult as possible right now. And if Piastri misses a braking point, so be it. is my answer. But I think he's used the best of his tyres now. So that's probably all she wrote in that regard. So I'm going to get him to not fight his teammate. George can now be unleashed. I'm going to get him to deploy. We'll see if we can catch Verstappen. Lap 28, and that quartet at the front have kind of taken off on their softer tyres than us. George on his hards, running the long game here, as Verstappen sets a fastest lap of a 36.3. That is some pace he's setting. It's 2.5 seconds quicker than us, which does explain why we are now 12 seconds behind him. But tyre-wise, they are munching through their tyres. They're going to be exposed at the end of the race. And hopefully, we can take advantage of that. It's exactly how we won the race last year. We basically were nowhere the entire race. And then it just came to Lewis in the final few laps. Oscar is out of the pit lane as well on a set of hard tyres. We're going to get him passing another Aston Martin. This time it's Alex Albon, and that is P11 for Oscar Piastri. Charles Leclerc is the first of the lead drivers into the pit lane. It's a set of mediums for him. The Red Bull mechanics have gone to work, delivered a good stop. George Russell is just ahead, a little bit ahead of him. So we'll have some work to do in terms of catching Leclerc. But he's going to be on much older tyres than us. Norris and Gasly on those softs are pushing their luck. Verstappen at the moment very fast too. I think he's going to finish the race on a set of softs. But so did Perez at the end of last year. And they fell apart at the end. At the end of the stint, the softs are a complete liability. And clearly Red Bull have not learnt from what Ferrari did last season. In comes George Russell then. How is the pit stop? 2.5 seconds. That's slick work from the boys and girls in the pit lane. Is Piastri going to be ahead of him? He is. So I will be asking Oscar to not fight his teammate as soon as George arrives at his gearbox. We're going to deploy the battery and start closing down the lead to the others. Verstappen still out on those mediums, so hopefully we'll come out a little bit closer to him, but I'm sure he's about to put in for some softs anytime soon. And in comes Max Verstappen for that set of soft tyres. 15 laps remain. I think they might just make, well, they should make it, but if he's pushing for the win, they will not. Where is George Russell? He's coming out of the final corner. He's going to be behind Verstappen, but we're going to have a tyre advantage over everybody because although Verstappen's going to have pace now, those softs are going to be very, very poor for him towards the end of the race. He's 8 seconds behind Verstappen, but we need to be trying to snipe off one of these Ferraris and at least finish in the top 4 and maybe even on the podium. Hopefully this all comes back towards us as tyres get old. 10 laps to go and we are closing the gap on Pierre Gasly. He's just done a 38.5. We've done a 37.6. We have also started conserving a little bit of fuel. I think we should be all right to get to the end from here. We don't want to push the tyres too much just yet. Verstappen's using his and it's taking him towards the victory. He's only 4.5 seconds off his teammate. But hopefully, for our sake, those tyres fall apart towards the end laps and give us an opportunity. Still 10 laps to go, and around COTA, that's a long way. These tyres wear pretty quickly. I mean, we've been looking after ours, and they're still taking a battering. So, Verstappen, look at that. Even in the time I've been talking, it's down 5% now. Those tyres are going to be very, very dodgy towards the end of this race. Piastri now in P10 and closing down on Sainz and Stroll. I'm not sure he'll even catch Tsunoda, but he might catch Tsunoda, but he definitely won't catch Ocon. But a decent drive nonetheless from Oscar. As Verstappen takes P2. And if Lando can get amongst it and make his life difficult, I'm all for it. There you go. Keep going, Lando. Piastri's taken a position. It's all happening. So much stuff to keep up with. But this is good racing from Oscar Piastri. We'll deploy, and with DRS, we'll blast our way through. And that's good from the young Aussie. Starting lap 51, I don't think we're going to get a podium, because even if tyres just fall off a cliff, we're nowhere near close enough. We are 12.5 seconds behind Lando Norris. And that's even before we've got to Pierre Gasly, who we're still 3 seconds behind. So P5 might be the best we do. P4 perhaps. But it's looking a little bit squirrely at the front now, because Verstappen closing in on a victory. Although, was he quicker than his teammate? He was a second faster than Leclerc last time round. Verstappen is under pressure though from Norris, which is definitely slowing him up. We have closed to within a second of Pierre Gasly on the penultimate lap, so we could yet steal this P4 just in time. I'm asking George to drive in clean air, and hopefully with DRS we can make this move. Not close enough just yet, but we're going to go for a final lap send in the race at least. We didn't need to do it in the sprint after passing Gasly on the penultimate lap. But Charles Leclerc starts the last lap. Verstappen not close enough. But his tyres, he's risking a puncture. Oh, imagine if Red Bull both have punctures on the final lap. Russell's so close. And I think he's going to be getting the job done into turn one. Here he goes. Tyres are too hot. Doesn't matter. They've only got one more lap of the Circuit of the Americas to do. And George Russell's going to hopefully complete it in P4. His tyres are the best of anybody in the top four. But it's going to matter very, very little, because we're too far away to do anything with it. Leclerc still hanging on. Verstappen, his tyres are still there, as are Lando's. So we're going to miss out on a podium. But Verstappen finishing second. That's 19 points. We'll get 12. So the gap is going to come down a little bit more. Charles Leclerc wins for Red Bull. He beats Max Verstappen in both races this weekend. Lando Norris takes P3 for Ferrari, but George Russell, P4. It's the fourth race in a row without a podium, though, for Mercedes. With 3 rounds to go, this could get away from us. And we need to do something about it. Those upgrades need to come and they need to work. So there is your United States Grand Prix result. That lock-up for George Russell just before his pit stop in the early stages was crucial. It cost us 5 or 6 seconds. I mean, we could have been in undercut range, and then we could have been in with the group as they had DRS, and it would have just been a much better race for us. We might even have been able to snatch P3, maybe even P2 off of Verstappen late on with tyres in a better shape. But that's racing, unfortunately, and sometimes you have to grin and bear it. Constructors' Championship, that's all but over now. Red Bull will win the Constructors' Championship this season. We are just about hanging on from Ferrari, though. In the Drivers' Championship, Max Verstappen now has more than 300 points, as does George Russell, and the gap is 25 points, with 78 plus 8 on offer for the sprint. So that is a total of 86 points still available. So We just need to make sure we score one more point than Max Verstappen over those. Well, we need to score as many points as Max Verstappen over those races, and we will be just fine. So it's getting tight at the top. It's going to crescendo, and we need to keep our cool heads, get the upgrades on the car, and make sure they work and deliver results. We might need to take a grid penalty in one of the final 3 races as well with George. So we've got that to think about also. But a decent recovery drive today, I suppose. But still not the podium, and that's what we need. If you enjoyed that race, make sure you leave a nice big thumbs up on the video for me. Subscribe down below for more F1 Manager content. Join the Discord as well, which is in the link in the description. I'll see you in Mexico for another sprint weekend. You're the best fans. Bye for now.